Captain Elena Blackwood maintained her composure as the Galactic Concordat's grand exhibition hall filled with theatrical gasps and condescending laughter. Floating before the assembled dignitaries was humanity's greatest achievement in military engineering, the CSS Avalon, though none of these beings understood what they were truly looking at. Observe the primitive chemical propulsion systems, Ambassador ZYX-427 warbled through their translation matrix, their crystalline form refracting the hull's ambient light. One might wonder how they managed to break orbit, let alone achieve interstellar travel. Elena's fingers twitched slightly, the neural implant in her palm itching to interface with the Avalon systems. As Earth's military attaché to the Concordat, she had a duty to maintain the facade, but watching these self-proclaimed advanced species mock what they didn't understand tested her patience. The Avalon's dark hull bore the scars of the Ghost War, a conflict these beings knew nothing about. They saw only the apparent crude armor plating, the inefficient weapon mounts, and what they assumed were exposed sensor arrays. What they failed to notice was how the ship's surface subtly shifted, microscopic machines slowly repairing 2 centuries of damage. Most fascinating, chirped Director Venn, their gelatinous form undulating with academic excitement. Note the barbaric use of kinetic weapons. Our analysis suggests they actually propelled solid matter as projectiles. Quite dangerous and unpredictable. Elena suppressed a smile. The Avalon's main guns were indeed kinetic weapons, accelerating engineered projectiles to appreciable fractions of light speed, each impact carrying the force of a tactical nuclear device. But that was just the ship's conventional armament. And these power readings. Another delegate waved a sensor wand at the vessel. The efficiency rating is barely above their planetary combustion engines. How did they expect to power their weapons? The delegate's sensor wand flickered briefly. Elena noticed, though no one else seemed to, a microsecond of interference as the Avalon's quantum core began to draw power from the museum's primitive power feeds. The ship wasn't dead. It was waking up. If I may, Elena stepped forward, playing her role. While our early vessels may seem crude by current standards, they served their purpose in humanity's development. Oh yes, of course. Director Venn's translated voice carried artificial enthusiasm. Every species must begin somewhere. Why, even the Xarthscion Collective began with simple fusion drives before developing proper quantum slip technology. Elena nodded politely, even as her neural implant detected more power fluctuations. The Avalon was methodically testing the museum's systems, its dormant AI gradually extending its awareness. These aliens, for all their supposed advancement, hadn't even noticed they were networking their systems with one of the most sophisticated artificial minds ever created. A junior curator floated forward, their tentacles waving in excitement. Director, we've completed the preliminary historical analysis. This vessel appears to date from their pre-contact era, specifically their internal conflicts. The damage patterns suggest dash. The curator's words cut off as the lights in the exhibition hall flickered. For just a moment, the Avalon's hull seemed to ripple, the scarred surface becoming mirror-smooth before returning to its weathered appearance. Apologies, Director Venn burbled. We're experiencing some power distribution issues. Nothing to be concerned about. But Elena was concerned. The Avalon wasn't supposed to wake this quickly. Something had triggered its combat protocols. Her implant tingled again, and this time she recognized the pattern, an old emergency alert system code, one that hadn't been used since the Ghost War. They were back. As the delegates continued their self-congratulatory tour, Elena quietly moved to a console and began typing. The museum's secure systems might as well have been transparent to her neural interface. She found what she was looking for in the deep space sensor logs, quantum wake signatures matching Ghost War patterns, hundreds of them, moving through the spaces between Concordat territories. The aliens had pulled humanity's deadliest warship from its hibernation, giving it power and access to their networks, all while an ancient enemy gathered in the darkness. Elena looked up at the Avalon's bridge, its armored windows reflecting the exhibition hall's lights. Behind that armor, she knew, systems were coming online, weapons were charging, and an AI was preparing for war. These smug aliens thought they were displaying a museum piece. They were about to discover they'd awakened a sleeping giant. And Elena Blackwood, the only person in the galaxy who knew the Avalon's true purpose, had to decide how much to tell them before it was too late. The midnight cycle of the Concordat Museum brought an eerie silence to its grand halls, broken only by the soft hum of environmental systems and the occasional whir of maintenance drones. In the darkness, the Avalon's hull had taken on a deeper shade of black, absorbing even the faint emergency lighting that lined the exhibition space. Security Chief Krall watched the overnight sensor feeds with growing unease, his scaled fingers drumming against the console. Something about the readings bothered him, subtle patterns in the power fluctuations that tickled ancient memories. As a veteran of the Concordat's border forces, he'd developed an instinct for trouble. "Run another diagnostic on Grid 7, he ordered the system. The computer chirped in acknowledgement, but before it could complete the scan, every screen in the security center went dark. In the exhibition hall, the Avalon's quantum core pulsed with carefully contained power. The ship's AI, designation Atlas, had spent the past 12 hours mapping the museum's network architecture. Now, with the facility's security systems blind, it began the next phase of its awakening protocol. Elena Blackwood stood in her quarters aboard the Concordat diplomatic station, surrounded by holographic displays showing deep space sensor data. She'd spent hours correlating the quantum wake signatures, building a picture of the Ghost Fleet's movements. The pattern was clear: they were herding the Concordat's worlds, pushing civilian shipping into predictable routes while staying just beyond standard detection range. Her neural implant tingled, Atlas was reaching out. Captain Blackwood, the AI's voice manifested directly in her mind, carried through quantum-entangled pathways that the Concordat sensors couldn't detect. The enemy is closer than initial estimates suggested. I've detected their signature in the Concordat's archived sensor logs. They've been here for decades. Elena's blood ran cold. How did they hide for so long? The Concordat's technology is advanced but predictable. The enemy has been using their own sensor networks as blind spots. A pause. They're hunting, Captain. Just as they did before. Before Elena could respond, her quarters' lighting shifted to emergency red. Through her window, she watched as sections of the diplomatic station began going dark. In the distance, the museum's grand dome loomed like a shadow against the starfield. Security Chief Krall had just ordered an emergency power restart when his console suddenly reactivated. But instead of the usual security feeds, he found himself staring at military sensor logs from 30 years ago. Star charts appeared showing vessel movements he'd never seen before, overlaid with combat analysis in a language he didn't recognize. By the first light, he whispered. The patterns matched what he'd been seeing in the power fluctuations, exact matches. Someone or something was recreating decades-old battles through the museum's power grid. In the exhibition hall, the Avalon's hull had begun to change. The seemingly random battle scars were shifting, realigning into precise geometric patterns. Maintenance drones that ventured too close found their control systems overridden, their simple minds absorbed into Atlas's expanding awareness. The Concordat needs to be warned, Elena subvocalized, knowing Atlas would hear. But they'll never believe us without proof. Agreed, Atlas responded. But caution is advised. The enemy has agents within the Concordat infrastructure. I've detected their code fragments in multiple critical systems. Elena's implant projected a tactical overlay onto her vision, highlighting potential security breaches throughout the station. The Ghost War had taught humanity harsh lessons about trust and verification. Every system, every person had to be considered compromised until proven otherwise. In the security center, Krall was about to call for a full system shutdown when his console displayed a message in clear Concordat standard: look deeper into the darkness between stars. The message was accompanied by a sensor log from his own border patrol days, 20 cycles ago. He remembered that patrol, his ship had detected something odd in a supposedly empty sector, but the readings had been dismissed as sensor ghosts. Now, playing across his screen, the enhanced data showed something terrifying: thousands of ships, their energy signatures masked to match background radiation, moving through Concordat space like shadows through fog. Elena made her way through the darkened diplomatic station, her augmented reflexes allowing her to move swiftly and silently. She needed to reach the museum before the Concordat authorities decided to solve their technical issues by simply pulling the power feeds to the Avalon. If they did that, Atlas would be forced to reveal itself dramatically, and the enemy would know their presence had been detected. The museum's grand entrance loomed before her, its security systems already subverted by Atlas. As she stepped inside, the air seemed to thicken with tension. The Avalon's hull now gleamed with a subtle iridescence, its true nature beginning to show through the carefully crafted disguise of age and damage. "They're moving," Atlas announced in her mind. "Multiple enemy vessels have altered course. They know we're awake." Elena reached out to touch the Avalon's hull, feeling the microscopic machines surge beneath her fingers. "How long do we have?" "At current velocity, 17 hours, 22 minutes until first contact." The AI's voice carried a note of what might have been anticipation. "The Concordat's weapons will be useless against them. Then we'll have to show them how humanity fights its battles," Elena smiled grimly. "Wake up, old friend. It's time for another war." Behind her, Security Chief Krall stepped out of the shadows, his weapon trained on her back. "I believe," he said quietly, "we need to talk about what's really happening in my museum." The Concordat's emergency council chamber erupted in chaos as Security Chief Krall's sensor data played across the giant holographic display. Elena stood calmly in the center of the storm, watching alien faces contort with disbelief and fear as they realized the truth of their situation. "Impossible." Ambassador ZYX 427's crystalline form vibrated with agitation. "Our borders have been secure for centuries. No force could have penetrated our detection grid without dash." "Without understanding exactly how your grid works," Elena interrupted. "Without knowing its blind spots, its predictable scan patterns, its dependence on standardized quantum frequencies." She gestured to the display showing thousands of enemy vessels hiding in plain sight. "They've been studying you, learning your weaknesses. Just like they studied us." High Commander Vex, the Concordat's military leader, raised all four of their arms for silence. Their bioluminescent skin pulsed with deep purple patterns of concern. "You claim these entities fought a war with humanity. Yet we found no record of such a conflict in your historical archives." "Because we erased those records," Elena explained. "We burned our own history to deny them intelligence about how we defeated them. The Ghost War never officially happened, but the Avalon remembers. And so do they." As if in response to her words, the chamber's lights flickered. On every screen, sensor data began shifting, changing, revealing layers of information that had always been present but never noticed. Atlas was showing them what their own systems had been trying to tell them for decades. "The enemy is a distributed intelligence," Elena continued. "They don't build ships, they become them. Every vessel in their fleet is a fragment of their consciousness. And they're hungry. They consume technology, adapt it, use it to grow stronger." Security Chief Krall stepped forward, his scales reflecting the emergency lighting. "The power fluctuations in the museum, they weren't random, were they? Your ship was fighting something. Even in its dormant state." Elena nodded. "The Avalon detected their probe attempts. They've been testing the museum's security, trying to determine if the ship was truly dead or merely sleeping." She smiled grimly. "They got their answer." High Commander Vex's skin shifted to a deep red. "If what you say is true, why didn't your people warn us? Why maintain this deception?" Before Elena could answer, every screen in the chamber went black. When they reactivated, they showed a real-time view of the outer system. Dozens of ships were emerging from seemingly empty space, their forms twisted and wrong, like oil slicks given three-dimensional form. Because, Atlas's voice emerged from every speaker, warning you would have warned them. And humanity learned the hard way that the only way to fight the enemy is to strike first, strike hard, and strike where they least expect it. The chamber fell silent as the alien ships approached. Their surfaces rippled with unnatural patterns, each vessel different yet somehow part of a larger whole. They moved with perfect coordination, their formation shifting like a school of predatory fish. Your weapons will be useless, Elena warned. They adapt to energy-based attacks almost instantly. Shields, particle beams, plasma projectors, they'll absorb them all and turn them against you. Then how did humanity fight them? Commander Vex demanded. The answer came in the form of a deep vibration that shook the entire station. In the museum below, the Avalon's hull had fully awakened. The fake battle damage was gone, replaced by smooth, black surfaces that seemed to drink in light itself. Weapon ports that the Concordat scientists had dismissed as primitive were opening, revealing systems that defied their understanding of physics. We fought them with ingenuity, Elena said quietly. With unpredictability. With weapons so crude and primitive that their adaptive intelligence couldn't comprehend them. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Through her neural link, she felt Atlas's satisfaction as the Avalon systems reached full power. The AI had spent centuries dreaming of this moment, planning for every contingency. The enemy thought they were hunting prey, but they were about to face a predator they had never truly defeated. Your defense fleet needs to pull back, Elena commanded, her voice carrying an authority that made even High Commander Vex straighten. The Avalon will take point. But first. She turned to address the Council directly. We need to discuss the real reason humanity joined the Concordat. We've been preparing for this day for a very long time. As if to punctuate her words, the enemy fleet launched its first attack. A wave of quantum-shifted energy that should have been undetectable to Concordat systems. But the Avalon was already moving, its ancient hull reflecting the deadly attack into empty space. The battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin, and humanity's greatest secret weapon was ready to show the Concordat exactly why their primitive technology was anything but obsolete. The Avalon moved like a predator awakened from hibernation, its midnight black hull absorbing both enemy fire and the stunned stares of the Concordat's military leadership. Through the Council chamber's panoramic windows, they watched as humanity's primitive warship demonstrated exactly why the Ghost War had been erased from history. Impossible, High Commander Vex whispered, their luminescent skin pulsing with patterns of awe and fear. The Avalon had just shrugged off an attack that should have atomized any vessel in the known galaxy. Those energy readings, they defy every law of physics we understand. No, Elena corrected, her neural link feeding her real-time battle data from Atlas. They defy every law of physics you understand. Humanity learned to think differently during the Ghost War. We had to. The enemy fleet split into attack formations, each group of twisted ships moving with terrible synchronization. Their surfaces rippled and shifted, adapting to each defensive measure the Concordat's remaining ships threw at them. Energy weapons were absorbed, shields were bypassed, and electronic countermeasures were turned against their users. But the Avalon responded with weapons that seemed to make no sense at all. Are those projectiles? Security Chief Krau asked in disbelief as the human warship's main guns fired. Solid matter accelerated to relativistic speeds, carrying payloads that the enemy's adaptive intelligence couldn't predict because they violated the very principles of rational engineering. Chaos weapons, Elena explained, watching through Atlas's sensors as the round struck home. The enemy works through perfect logic, absolute prediction. So we built weapons that run on controlled chaos, quantum uncertainty amplifiers, probability drives, paradox bombs. Things so crude and impossible that their intelligence can't adapt to them. The impacts proved her point. Where Concordat energy weapons had been absorbed harmlessly, the Avalon's primitive, kinetic rounds tore through enemy vessels like they were made of smoke. Each hit sparked cascading failures that the enemy's distributed consciousness couldn't compensate for. But it wasn't enough. For every ship the Avalon destroyed, 3 more emerged from the quantum wake zones that the Concordat had never thought to monitor. The enemy was fully committed now, their entire hidden fleet revealing itself. "We need to evacuate the civilian stations," High Commander Vex ordered, their skin now pulsing urgent patterns of command. "All non-essential personnel must dash." "No," Elena interrupted sharply. "That's exactly what they want. The enemy doesn't just consume technology, they consume pattern and order. Every predictable action we take makes them stronger." She turned to address the council. "This is why humanity joined the Concordat. Not because we needed your protection, but because you needed ours. We've been preparing for this moment for 2 centuries." Through her neural link, Elena sent a coded signal that Atlas instantly relayed across quantum channels that the enemy couldn't detect. Across Concordat space, hidden transmitters activated. In supposedly empty sectors, automated platforms that had been disguised as space debris came online. And in the museum's supposedly primitive display cases, other human artifacts began to wake up. By the first light, Security Chief Krall breathed as new signals appeared on his sensors. "There are more of them." The Avalon wasn't just a warship, Elena revealed as the museum's other displays shed their carefully crafted disguises. It was a guardian, watching over humanity's real secret weapons. "We called them the Lazarus Cache, technology so dangerous that we couldn't risk anyone knowing it existed, even our own people." The enemy fleet seemed to hesitate as new threats appeared on multiple fronts. Their perfect formation wavered for the first time as sensor ghosts became real warships, as space debris revealed itself to be weapon platforms, as humanity's long game finally showed its full scope. "You've been lying to us from the beginning," Ambassador ZYX-427 accused, their crystalline form vibrating with anger. "Using our own arrogance against us, hiding your true capabilities behind a mask of primitive technology." "Yes," Elena admitted without shame. "Because we knew this day would come. The enemy never truly left after the Ghost War, they just went into hiding, searching for new hunting grounds. We couldn't warn you directly because they were already here, watching through your own systems. So we did what humanity does best, we adapted. We planned. We waited." The Avalon's quantum core pulsed with power as Atlas coordinated the awakening Lazarus Cache. Each weapon platform and hidden warship operated on different principles, using technology that seemed to break the laws of physics in unique and unpredictable ways. The enemy's adaptive intelligence struggled to comprehend threats that followed no logical pattern, that operated on principles that seemed to change at random. "Now," Elena commanded, her neural implant linking her to humanity's entire hidden arsenal, "we show them why they should have finished us off when they had the chance." The battle for the galaxy's future erupted in earnest as order faced chaos, logic faced impossibility, and the Concordat learned why humanity's primitive technology had been hidden rather than lost. The enemy was about to discover that sometimes the oldest weapons were the deadliest, especially when they'd been improved by 2 centuries of secret development. The void between stars erupted with impossible light as humanity's Lazarus Cache unleashed its full fury. The enemy fleet's perfect formation had dissolved into chaos, their distributed consciousness struggling to adapt to weapons that defied prediction. Through her neural link, Elena felt Atlas's grim satisfaction as centuries of planning finally bore fruit. Multiple enemy vessels attempting quantum reorganization, Atlas reported directly to her mind. Their adaptive algorithms are failing. They cannot establish stable patterns. The Avalon's main guns thundered again, launching projectiles that seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Where they struck, enemy vessels didn't just die, they unraveled, their very existence becoming uncertain on a quantum level. High Commander Vex watched in stunned silence as humanity's hidden arsenal systematically dismantled what they had thought was an invincible enemy. Those platforms, they gestured at the weapon systems that had appeared from nowhere. They're using technology we've never seen before. Technology we invented, then deliberately forgot, Elena explained, her eyes tracking battle data through her neural interface. During the Ghost War, we discovered that the enemy could access any knowledge that existed in networked systems. So we developed weapons in complete isolation, stored them in quantum-locked vaults, and erased all record of their existence. The enemy fleet was now fully committed to the battle, their remaining ships converging on the Avalon like antibodies attacking an infection. But each attack revealed more of humanity's preparations. Quantum mines that had laid dormant for decades activated, creating zones of impossible physics. Probability torpedoes detonated, causing localized breakdowns in causality that the enemy's logical minds couldn't process. Your entire technological development, Security Chief Crow realized, it was all a deception. The chemical rockets, the kinetic weapons. A carefully crafted image, Elena nodded. We maintained the appearance of primitive technology while developing weapons that operated outside the enemy's ability to comprehend. Every time they adapted to one impossible weapon, we hit them with something even more irrational. The battle reached its crescendo as the enemy launched its final, desperate assault. Their remaining ships merged into a single vast entity, a writhing mass of twisted metal and dark energy that bore down on the Concordat's capital station like an apocalyptic wave. All Concordat vessels, hold position, Elena commanded, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of preparation. Let them come to us. They'll destroy everything. Ambassador ZYX for 27 protested, their crystalline form practically vibrating with fear. Elena smiled grimly. No. They'll destroy themselves. The Avalon moved to intercept the enemy's combined form, its midnight hull now glowing with patterns that hurt to look at. Atlas had been waiting for this moment, had spent centuries calculating the perfect confluence of chaos and order. Initiating final protocol, the AI announced through every speaker in the Concordat station. All human assets, synchronize quantum states. The Lazarus cache responded as one. Every hidden platform, every impossible weapon, every piece of humanity's true technology aligned into a configuration that existed as much in probability space as in physical reality. The Avalon's quantum core pulsed with power that made the fabric of spacetime shiver. What we learned in the Ghost War, Elena explained as reality itself seemed to hold its breath, was that the enemy isn't just a distributed intelligence. They're a quantum intelligence, existing in a superposition of states that allows them to adapt to anything they can understand. The enemy mass rushed toward them, confident in its ability to absorb and adapt to any weapon humanity could deploy. It had faced every possible form of attack in its long existence, had conquered species far more technologically advanced than these upstart humans. So we built weapons that can't be understood, Elena finished. Not by them, not by the Concordat, not even by ourselves. We threw away logic and embraced contradiction. And now. The Avalon fired. Not its main guns, not its impossible weapons, but something else entirely. A pulse of pure quantum uncertainty, the product of 2 centuries of development in physics that deliberately made no sense. The enemy mass tried to adapt, tried to shift its quantum state to match the attack. It was exactly what humanity had planned for. The pulse hit, and reality stuttered. The enemy's distributed consciousness, trying to exist in all possible states at once, found itself trapped in a paradox of its own making. Its perfect logic encountered something that could not be logical, could not be predicted, could not be understood. The vast enemy mass collapsed in on itself, its quantum state collapsing into chaos as its mind tried to comprehend the incomprehensible. In moments, the threat that had haunted humanity for centuries dissolved into quantum foam, their perfectly ordered intelligence destroyed by weapons that embraced disorder as a fundamental principle. Silence fell across the battlefield. The Concordat Council stared in awe at the space where their greatest enemy had existed moments before. The Avalon's hull cooled, its impossible weapons powering down as Atlas confirmed total victory. And now, Elena addressed the stunned council, we can finally stop pretending. Humanity doesn't need the Concordat's protection. But perhaps we can offer ours. After all, she smiled, sometimes the best guardians are the ones who understand that not everything needs to make sense. The Avalon hung in space, its true nature finally revealed, not a relic of a primitive past, but a harbinger of a future where humanity's greatest strength lay in its ability to think beyond the bounds of logic and reason. The Ghost War was truly over, and a new chapter in galactic history was about to begin. In the depths of the ship's quantum core, Atlas processed the outcome with what might have been satisfaction. Humanity had gambled everything on the belief that the best way to fight perfect logic was with perfect chaos. The gamble had paid off, and the galaxy would never be the same.